Hello, third grade scientists, and welcome back. So now you are coming to the end of Unit 4, your unit on weather and climate. You will take time this week to do some self-assessment of your learning in order to prepare for your unit assessment on what you've learned during this unit. So during this video today, I'm going to do some reminders and tips for you for good self-assessment to help you prepare for your assessment in this unit. Let's get going. So remember what self-assessment is. You ask yourself, how can I check my own understanding of what I learned in this science unit? These are some ways to think about your learning. When you're looking over the material, reading the objectives, looking back through your slideshows, and as you're reading and you're thinking to yourself, I remember this, I get this, and you almost have a happy feeling inside, that's an assessment that you understood what you learned, and you can actually choose, I get it. I could say this information back to someone. I even think I may be able to teach somebody else about this. That's a good way to determine whether or not you've learned the information. But if you haven't, and you're reading back over your slideshows or your notes or your objectives, and you remember some of it, but a couple of things you get stuck and say, sure if I remember that. I know a lot of it, but I still have a couple of questions. Then you might say, I don't quite get everything. So I just need a little review or a refresher course. Or maybe I just need to ask my teacher a question or two to confirm my thinking. If you're looking back over the material for this unit, and you're getting that weird feeling in your stomach and that nervous feeling, like it's the first time you're seeing it, or you're really having a hard time remembering, then you might feel like I'm stuck and need help. And that's okay. That means you're doing good self-assessment. It's not okay to just say, oh, I know everything, I remember everything. If you're really aware that you're stuck and you need help, you're doing good self-assessment, because then you're going to come up with strategies of ways to find out about the things that you're stuck on. Maybe you just need to reread the lessons, maybe rewatch a few videos, maybe ask or talk to a classmate or ask your teacher some questions. And all of a sudden, as you hear the information maybe explained a different way, or just hear it once again, you might feel like, oh, wait a second, I do remember this. I do get this. I think I can explain it now. And that's all signs of good self-assessment. So just a reminder about growth mindset. Good learners have what we call a growth mindset. No matter how young or old you are, your mind is constantly growing as long as you allow it to. And the way you allow for that growth is to be honest with yourself about your learning and know that it's okay to have questions or admit when you don't understand something. You don't think of something as difficult, you think about it as learning a lesson. You don't say, wait a second, I don't know this. No, good growth mindset learners say, I have to find out more about this, or this is causing a problem for me. Nope, a good growth mindset would say, this is an opportunity for me to learn more. So keep growing that mind. I know I always am trying to, and you should too. So here we go. Today, you will read and reflect on the lesson objectives you had for this unit. You're going to ask yourself, can I explain this to someone else? That's a true sign that you understood your learning. If you can look at an objective and say, oh, I could teach this to a classmate or a friend or a sibling who doesn't know anything about it, then that demonstrates that you have good understanding of your learning. Can you give examples from the lesson? Do examples start popping in your mind like popcorn? That's also a good sign that you understood what you learned. Do I still have questions about this lesson? Well, you might say to yourself, well, if I have questions, then I didn't understand it, but that's not necessarily always true. Having questions means you do understand it and you want to explore more. So having questions about your learning doesn't necessarily mean you didn't understand it, but it could mean that you still have some confusion and you want to be aware of that before you take any kind of formal assessment or test in this unit. The other most important thing I want you to remember is that self-assessment is hard work. It's not just an easy check the boxes. You should be taking your time and probably will feel like you need to take a break at some time when you feel tired, because the thinking is hard work and your brain does get tired from it. But remember, you can do it. Take one lesson or a set of objectives at a time, then take a break and come back. That's the best way, the most healthiest way to assess your learning. So let's try one together. I will model my thinking and self-assessment for a few learning objectives from this unit of study to remind you of how self-assessment goes. So you may see this slide in your self-assessment work today. And the topic was weather and climate, and here's a few of the learning targets. You're instructed to put an X in the box that describes how well you've met the learning target. Then, if you still have a question for your teacher, or if you need help or something you're wondering about, you're going to jot it in this box. So watch as I go through each one of these targets and assess my own learning. Okay, so the first one is, I can describe what a meteorologist does. Right away, I'm this guy. I want to check here. I know this really well. I know what a meteorologist does. I watch them on TV every night giving the weather forecast. They study the weather and the atmosphere. That's their job. I know this really well. I can describe what a meteorologist does. I didn't even have to stop and think about it. I can differentiate between weather and climate. I know this one too. I'm this guy. I can definitely do that. I wasn't sure when I first started this unit, but working through the lessons and watching the videos and doing some of the activities really taught me the difference between weather and climate. So weather describes what the conditions are like on a particular day. So you could have a rainy day, a sunny day, a cloudy day. Weather can change day to day, but climate is what the weather is like most of the time in a certain region. And I can even give an example. For example, if I moved to the North Pole or the South Pole on the globe, they would have polar climates, which means it's usually cold there. I would expect to see snow and ice. I would expect to have to wear a jacket, warm clothing to stay warm because it's so cold there. I would never expect that I could have a hot day where I could wear my bathing suit and go swimming, because the climate there is always cold. They can have sunny days, cloudy days, but the weather or climate there is usually cold. But in a tropical rainforest, it would be hot and steamy and humid, and I could expect to never need a winter jacket or boots or gloves in the tropical rainforest. That's the difference between weather and climate. I know that really well. I can collect and organize weather data for a single location by season. I'm feeling like this guy down here. I remember doing that. I remember studying the seasons, winter, spring, summer, fall, and then organizing what the weather was like by temperature each day during those seasons to analyze it. But I would like to go back and see some examples of those graphs just to remember what analysis I can do of that data and how it was organized and which were the better graphs for organizing that data. So I think I would be this guy for that, and I'll put him in. I would check off I need help. And the question I might have is just, what lessons can I go back to look at some graphs and weather data? But I think once I see them, I'm going to remember. I can use tables, graphs, and maps to describe yearly patterns of weather for a single location. Yikes, I'm feeling like this guy here. That seems like a lot. I think it's connected to this one. I think I might be able to find it, but I really do feel like I need help there to look at the different tables and graphs for a single location. I think it relates back to climate, but I'm going to ask my teacher what would be the best lessons to go back and look for this information, just to remind myself and give myself a refresher course. I think when I look at it, I might move to I get this, but I definitely want to go back and look at these two I can statements. Okay, boys and girls, so you noticed that I went through each statement one at a time. It was not something that happened quickly. I really stopped and thought about what I knew, practiced explaining it, thought if I could give examples before I decided what I was going to check off. This is thoughtful work. It takes time, but it is the most helpful studying and reviewing of the work that you can do. Most importantly, what you need to remember is you've got this. Remember, exercise your brain with a growth mindset. Don't rush through this. Take your time and take breaks if you need to. It's okay if you still have questions or don't understand something. Seeking answers to those questions is the best kinds of learning and self-assessment you can do. Good luck. I wish you luck. Rewatch this video as many times as you need to help you with your